and this tutorial is how to make this slightly simplified version of my frozen friendship bracelet pattern. And I'll have the link in the description box below. This bracelet, as you can see, has all the same elements as the other one I uploaded, but it has slightly fewer knots per row, so it's not going to be as confusing. You're less likely to make mistakes or forget which direction you're supposed to be knotting something, but it is still a medium to intermediate level pattern. So if you're not familiar with doing friendship bracelets, make sure you watch my video on how to do the 4 types of knots first, and practice doing a few chevrons before you attempt this one.
This is the pattern I'm using for this one. It's very slightly less complicated than the other one, but it's the same kind of look. Alright, so I've laid out all of my strings, and from left to right they are dark blue, black, blue, white, blue, white, blue, white, blue, white, blue, red, blue, red, blue, blue, black, and dark blue.
So for the first row, I'm going to start with 5 forward backward. 2 backward, 1 forward backward, and 1 backward forward. For the second row, outer strings stay out, and I'm going to start with 4 backward forward, 2 backward, 1 backward forward, and 1 backward. Third row, outer strings come back in, start with 4 forward backward, 2 backward forward, 1 forward backward, and 2 backward forward. Fourth row, outer strings are out again, start with forward, 3 backward forward, 2 forward, 1 backward forward, and 1 forward. Row 5, outer strings come back in, start with 5 forward backward, 1 forward, 2 forward backward, and 1 backward forward. 6th row, outer strings are back out, start with 1 backward, 4 backward forward, 1 forward backward, 1 backward forward, and 1 forward backward. 7th row, outer strings come back in, start with 3 forward backward, 1 forward, 2 forward backward, 2 backward, and 1 backward forward. 8th row, outer strings come back out, start with 4 backward forward, 1 forward backward, 2 backward forward, and 1 backward. 9th row, outer strings come back in, start with 4 forward backward, 1 backward forward, 2 forward backward, 2 backward forward. For the 10th row, outer strings come back out, start with 1 forward, 3 backward forward, 1 forward backward, 2 backward forward, and 1 forward. 11th row, outer strings come back in, start with 3 forward backward, 1 forward, 1 backward forward, 3 forward backward, 1 backward forward. 12th row, outer strings come back out, start with 3 backward, 1 forward, 1 backward, 2 backward forward, and 1 forward backward. 13th row outer strings come back in, start with 4 forward backward, 2 forward, 2 forward backward, and 1 backward forward. 14th row outer strings come back out, start with 4 backward forward, 2 forward backward, 2 backward. 15th row outer strings come back in, start with 4 forward backward, 2 backward, and 3 backward forward. 16th row outer strings come back out, start with 2 forward, 1 forward backward, 1 backward forward, 1 forward, 1 backward forward, and 2 forward. 17th row outer strings come back in, start with 4 forward backward, 1 forward, 2 forward backward, 1 forward, and 1 backward forward. 18th row outer strings come back out, start with 1 backward, 2 backward forward, 2 forward backward, 2 backward forward, and 1 forward backward. 19th row outer strings come back in, start with 2 forward backward, 1 backward forward, 1 forward backward, 1 backward forward, 2 forward backward, 1 backward, and 1 backward forward. 20th row outer strings come back out, start with 2 backward forward, 1 backward, 1 forward, 1 forward backward, 2 backward forward, and 1 backward. 21st row outer strings come back in, start with 7 forward backward, and 2 backward forward. 22nd row outer strings come back out, start with 1 forward, then 6 backward forward, and 1 forward. 23rd row outer strings come back in, start with 6 forward backward, 1 backward, 1 forward, and 1 backward forward. 24th row outer strings come back out, start with 1 backward, 6 backward forward, and 1 forward backward. 25th row outer strings come back in, start with 6 forward backward, 1 forward, 1 backward, and 1 backward forward. 26th row outer strings come back out, start with 2 backward forward, 1 forward, 1 forward backward, 3 backward forward, and 1 backward. 27th row outer strings come back in, start with 2 forward backward, 1 backward forward, 1 forward, 3 forward backward, 2 backward forward, 28th row outer strings come back out, start with 1 forward, 1 backward forward, 1 backward, 1 forward backward, 3 backward forward, and 1 forward. 29th row outer strings come back in and do 8 forward backward. And for your 30th and final row, strings come back out, start with 1 backward, then 4 backward forward, 1 backward forward, and 1 forward backward. And that is the entire pattern. So from this point you will simply rewind the video and just keep repeating the pattern until the bracelet is as long as you want it. And when your bracelet is as long as you need it, finish it off with a couple of braids. And that is your finished bracelet. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, and subscribe.